So the second conversation we want to have, Kira, is really about a bit more on sort of the personal level. Is how have you seen friendships or small groups fracture because of changes in people's relationship status, particularly from single to married?
Yeah, I think that's definitely very, very real. And I think it's due to a lot of the time due to sort of lack of communication, but I've definitely gone through a few iterations of friendship groups as people have, good friends have got married, often sort of either moved away, or sometimes even if they haven't, it's just it somehow drifts and you don't see them as often. And I think there's a part of that is, effort on both sides, but I have a suspicion that it's often to do with sort of assumptions being made around, sometimes it's like married people that sort of are assuming that like their single friends are just going out super busy and have this amazing social life and whatever, are still partying away or whatever they're doing. And then the single people are assuming, the married people, they don't have time for us anymore. It's like whether they have kids or they don't have kids, it's like they're doing all their couples stuff or with other couples and don't want anything to do with me. And I think if they actually just kind of talk to each other a bit more, they'd find out that that was not the case all the time on either side. And so I would love that to change a little bit, because I think some of interestingly now, a lot of my sort of single friends are a bit younger than me, and maybe it's sort of, again, it's like still in that situation of not married yet, and I think the married people or sort of families that have really drawn me into their family and really included me are very few and far between. And I love those relationships. I love being sort of included in all of that stuff. It's just a little bit sad that I definitely have experienced the kind of, I was in this friendship group and now I'm kind of seeing the Instagram posts of all of them and their husbands and wives, and I'm not getting that invite. And maybe it's just like the inconvenience of like having an extra person that doesn't make the even numbers in the dinner party or whatever. But that seems a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I completely. I know. I think another friend was saying to me recently they felt they were in sort of ever decreasing circles of single people who they didn't necessarily want to hang out with, which is awkward. They were saying, well, you're assuming that the people who are single are going to be people who you're also going to be friends with, but that's a really arbitrary category.
Yeah,
it's like saying,
you're single,
everyone with red hair, you will all be friends with me. Actually, no, that's not a category. It's like friends of friends. Relationship status is like shouldn't impede that. But I want to sort of acknowledge that within the context of the church, there's been nervousness about married people having single friends. So like I'm friends with you. You're a single woman. So someone might say, oh, well, you're married and you've got a single woman who's a friend. Like, that could be bad.
Even dangerous.
Dangerous, exactly. Yeah. I reflect back on you won't remember this, but Joyce Huggett tapes, which we used to listen to when we were forced to listen to.
That's
Does anyone know what tapes are? Does anyone remember tapes? They were like these cassette things which had like black... Anyway, but we used to listen to this sort of, this elderly lady who was wonderful and godly, advising us young people about how we were going to live our lives, and it definitely wasn't fraternizing with the wrong sort of people, because you're definitely going to fall into sin. And she was brilliant, but I think that it was an era of discipleship which really wasn't very emotions led. The idea was, if you put yourself in this particular box and don't put yourself in the way of temptation, you won't make a mistake. Which, there's some wisdom in some of this stuff, but equally it's very simplistic in terms of, if you want to do the wrong thing, you can just do the wrong thing. Having friends who are single is not an automatic pass to do bad things. In fact, probably quite the opposite. So there's wisdom that's necessary in relationship. But there's not the need to build up high walls and go, right, I'm going to hive myself off, because actually that's quite a foolish way of self-management anyway. If you're not resolved, you need to work stuff out, but hiving yourself off and boxing yourself in to a particular group of people doesn't necessarily help you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, there is that element. I think that sometimes this is a particular issue more within church because of this. There's so many incredible opportunities. It's like, this is where Christianity, this is where church should be the shining light of how to do really healthy relationships. And with men and women, single, married, because we are family, we're brothers and sisters. And that is something that the secular world actually doesn't, that doesn't have the benefit of. It's like, this is something where we can be leading the way. But unfortunately, it's become something that's actually blocking or kind of highlighting some of the most unhealthy, I suppose, relationships around, or relationship dynamics. Where, I know I joke and we laugh, but it's sort of, a single person, can't have a really healthy friendship with a married person or whatever. And we need to talk about what good boundaries look like. Yes, nobody's saying, we've got to use really good common sense and things like that, but not put those walls up unnecessarily.
Yeah, and I think what I've experienced here at St. E's is some great sort of multi-dimensional relationships within my life group, and particularly enjoying time with some older people in my life group, and just having this sort of breadth of connection upwards in terms of age and experience and maturity. I always find their wisdom amazing, and also laterally, with people in the same age and stage as us, some single people in our group, some married people in our group. Quite a lot of the married people needing to come, one partner can appear 1 week, so it's just a beautiful thing, it's a kind of unique thing, and doing life with some amazing people and feeling their pain. I think I'm always very conscious of sometimes we'll have a baby off where everyone's talking about their babies and what problems they've got, and that can be really hard for some of the single people in group, because we're pressing some of their that pain point, but they're always really generous, and actually I think we was looking for a corrective of saying, actually, let's moderate how this is going to work. So you need wisdom, but also there should be flexibility in the community so you can actually make mistakes. That's okay. You've just been on a great holiday with the Ropers. Tell us a bit about them, because they're amazing people.
Yes, they are an amazing couple who I actually got to know fairly recently, but they are just one of the people who I think one of the sort of families who really model bringing people into their home, and no matter what their relationship status or marital status. And we ended up going, there were 10 of us on the holiday. It was the Ropers, their 3 children and 5 single women, which was, and it was one of the best holidays I've ever had. And it's I think I'm so grateful for people who, married people who are willing to include me. The amount of times that I've been invited out or whatever to kind of sort of take part in something like a holiday or a dinner party, a brunch or whatever event, I can count on almost one hand. And that some of those reasons, it could be, it's yes, we don't, it's it's risky having a single woman around, or is it oh yeah, or is it just the assumptions of, they're going to be busy because, sort of single people have loads of these, this amazing social life or whatever, or it's just easier because we don't have to think about, who else are we going to invite with that other person and things like that. So those, I think it's the most amazing gift when, you can, I do know I know a lot more about child rearing than I probably should for somebody who doesn't have kids, but I love hearing, I love being part of those conversations as long as it's not like all the time and every time and the only thing we ever talk about, because they're including me in their lives, and then I can also sort of share some of what I'm going
They're
through.
blessed by you being in their lives. I mean, I
hope so, yeah.
As from the other side of the table, me and Lou have we've definitely thought, we're sort of watching Netflix and like drinking non-alcoholic gin, making like, should we make one of those non-alcoholic gin cocktails? Oh, okay. Shall we have a box of After Eights? Like, should we invite a single friend round? No, they'll think this is so boring. There's sort of the idea of like life, the idea of sort of mundane, life. I mean, we don't think it's mundane, but we just think we see other people out and about and we sort of think, oh, this is, is this fun? And there can be a danger of sort of assuming that single people all want to just have fun and be out and about. Well, obviously, in moderation, everyone does, but actually, it's just great to share time. And I'd encourage all of the like married couples in our church and churches to actually get over their hang-ups and recognize that actually just getting together in a home, don't worry about those sort of things. Just spend time together.
It's just about being together.
And also, top tip is if you're having a dinner, just invite one single person. Don't invite another person of the opposite sex who you're hoping to match them up with.
You can, but not all the time.
Yeah. Unless there's sort of previous agreement like that. That's actually a plan. But you can have 5 people at your dinner table. That's okay, or like even 7. Like odd numbers count. So just to encourage you to like actually totally odd numbers are fine. And a single person won't be weirded out by the fact they've been invited around to dinner when there's a couple of couples there. And
I know I'm single, so like it's not going to be a shock to me if I get there.
I
don't have a pair.
Where is this? Just that kind of simple thing of actually saying we've got permission just to go. If I'm inviting a couple over, why don't I also invite a single person over who I'm friends with? And that's just such a really easy and helpful gift.
Really quickly, one of the things I'd also say is that, I don't know, Will, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there is sometimes a little bit of awkwardness if you don't know how somebody feels about being single or what their relationship status is, about asking them, because it's like, is it quite a personal thing? And it can even be quite a painful thing, not for everybody, because you don't know how somebody feels, so you don't want them to think you're prying into their lives. So I think in that instance, I think sometimes the onus is on the single person to say, if you want people to sort of be involved in that part of your life or ask you about it, you have to give somebody permission and just bring it up. I've definitely been around long enough to kind of say like, oh yeah, actually I'm sort of, this is how I feel, or I'm open to dating, or I'm not open to dating, whatever it is. Then you've opened up. I think it's easier for the single person to open up that conversation and give permission to anybody else to then ask you about it, or to ask you about how you're feeling, or that sort of where you're at with it at any time. But it's harder, I think, for if you haven't brought it up.
Yeah. So if you're single, there's some resilience needed to kind of get into the conversation, some openness to give permission. I certainly think that's really helpful.
Again, it's not anything shameful either. That's the other thing we need to kind of go over. It's like, it's not this terrible thing that nobody can talk about. It's a perfectly, everybody's been single at some stage of their life, I hope. So,
Yeah, great. Have your second conversation.